My name is Celia. I am 28 years old. Today is June 29th of 2018. I am speaking with Janelle, who's my best friend, and we are recording this interview where she lives in Wappinger.
So how did we become friends?
Well, it all started back at LCBMS when Janelle came up to me at the locker and, basically asked me to hang out. We went back to her house. She gave me a total makeover, did my hair and everything. We watched CSI and I met certain members of her family. And, that's pretty much how it started.
Yeah. So you forgot the part where you didn't want to be my friend.
Oh yeah, I was sort of busy. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah.
I remember that too. I went up to you and I was like, "Hey," and you're like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Do you want to hang out sometime?" And you're like, "Why are you even talking to me?" Yeah. And I was just like, "Because I want to be your friend." Why else am I talking to you? And you're like, what do you mean you want to talk
to me? But to be fair, guys, I had just moved up from the Bronx. I was new to the area. I didn't know anybody. So here I am in a new school. No one's being friendly to me. And then, I know who she hangs out with. Those girls are not nice to me. They're not cool with me. So... what's going on here? Why do...
Oh, you thought I was setting you up to get bullied.
Well, no, I didn't. I was very, very skeptical of why you particularly wanted to be my friend.
Well, I was getting bullied, so I wouldn't do that to someone else.
No, but you could understand why I was coming.
No, I understand. Yeah, I understand it. I was just saying that for me though, us becoming friends was it was really because I saw you in English class. It was because I told you, everyone in school, we were in class and they were just not up to my level. The teacher would say things and their responses, I'd be like, that was really what you came up with. But you were the other one in class that had good answers. And I'm like, oh, I got competition here. This girl knows her stuff. And it's you're from the Bronx. You always hear that these schools are better. But I'm like, why are these kids so far behind? And you're from the Bronx over here. And you're up to par. I'm like, oh, she's on my level. We're going to be in honors classes together. So that intrigued me about you. That's where my curiosity came from.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, she's smart.
And so, going to the question of why did we become friends?
Yeah, I think we became friends because of what we learned that we valued was in each other. And we saw those values coming out. So I think when we realized that was manifesting itself, it became oh, this clicks. It felt like it clicked, but it was really because what you valued and what makes you Celia and what makes me Janelle is our value system. So I think realizing that and feeling what that feels like is what caused us to have a relationship. So what values do you think make our friendship unique?
That authenticity, that ability to just be ourselves with each other and understand why we are the way that we are. But on a whole other level, being, super conscious of, the type of person that you're friends with, and wanting to make the effort to grow and, help each other, but also learn from each other and, essentially, make memories. We're growing together. We're going to be experiencing things. You're going to know my history. I'm comfortable. I find that this is a valuable friendship. That's not easy for me to find, especially with other strong female personalities. So it's
that we are.
So being able to navigate through all that.
Two female bulls, man. But but it is I think for me, that uniqueness comes from the fact that we can communicate, and because of the way we communicate with each other, we're both very empathetic towards each other. And that allows us to have communication where we're listening and understanding the other person's story, like what their experience. They're like a little player in their game of life, and we're willing to understand them. And I think because of that, we feel safe with each other. There's trust established.
Yeah,
and we can be vulnerable. Like, so we can be that authentic, you know, human towards each other, and we can have something meaningful.
Yeah, without having to worry about anything.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you value the most about me?
I would say like your loyalty, like, you know, how you're my girl. Like,
through everything.
Like, yeah, that's Jay, you know, I know that she'll be there. Like,
and that's what I value in you too, is loyalty, because for me, you've been there through my ups and my downs, and you've been there through the downs. So it's like, and even like, were times where we had really bad times, like, we were still respectful towards each other.
Yeah, like I remember that low point back in 2008, 2009, where we stopped being friends for a little while, and it was honestly because you were going through an event. You know, being in the military, I didn't know much about it. Like, I just knew it happened from that point of your life, being in the military. And like you going through stuff with your mom, you know, so I just felt like it was very overwhelming, but I didn't understand why you exploded the way that you did. Yeah, and it was kind of scary.
Yeah, when I became Spider-Woman.
Yeah, with like, I have a whole group of my friends here, and here goes Janelle, like just up in the air, climbing against the wall, and we're all like, holy fucking shit, how is this happening right now?
I know. I was like,
yeah, Egypt, and you're listening to this. You were there, Billy. You were there.
Right.
Kristen, you were there.
I know. Everybody was shocked. They were like, how are you doing that? And everyone's like, yo, that's what it means to be a Marine.
Alexis and Nico were even there.
Really?
Like, that.
I don't remember everybody that was there.
And Larissa
really?
was there. Yeah.
See, I wasn't. When that happened, I wasn't recognizing who was there. I was having a flashback.
Yeah. No, I get it.
So for me, it wasn't like I was, you know, I knew what was going on with everyone else. Like, there was so much happening inside me. It was survival.
Yeah.
Is what it was. And that's the only thing it was. Like, it's a room full of people, and I'm just trying to get to this girl. And I had like this one girl who was trying to bully my sister and thought I was going to be okay with it. Like, no, my survival instinct kicked in.
Yeah.
Like, I've been there. I've been through experience so many times. And back to like my mom, the military, school, like everything, that survival was like the option, you know? But yeah, so like, what do you think we learned from that low point?
I mean, we definitely understood our level of crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, all right, something
from that extreme. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It was an eye opener.
Well, because we stopped being friends for what, 7-8 months?
Yeah, it was like basically throughout the whole summer, and then like right before the holidays we started talking.
Yeah, I think I showed up at your mom answered the door like scared, like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I just want to talk to Celia, like I miss her.
Which I'm glad you did, because like obviously we're here today, and you know, regardless of what we've been through, I think looking back on it, like trying to think about like, well, what caused that to happen? Like, how did that transpire? I think that's the question we really need to ask ourselves. Like,
yeah, and I think when you look at what did cause it to transpire, for me at least, it was that I had PTSD at that time, but didn't know it, and no one knew it, because at the time when I came out of the military, like after I went through a rape in the Marine Corps, and I also went through some other lesser like offenses for sexual assault. So you have to think that I was only 17, 18 years old at the time that these things happened. So I was still a child.
Mm-hmm.
And for me to even go into the Marine Corps, I had to get emancipated, meaning I was so young that the court system had to allow me to have rights for myself.
Mhm.
So I was there to have an opportunity, a chance to be able to go to school. I like rated the highest on the sciences. I was like, that was my most proud that I had ever felt. Felt like I was entering the Marine Corps and I was going to be this woman who made a difference in America. Like I would go in, start the sciences, and because I was a nuclear biological chemical specialist. So I dealt with like weapons of mass destruction. And I really believed that I would go through and learn everything and I would be able to change the way we look at how we hurt other people and how we engage with them for something positive. That I would learn from that and I would be able to help direct humanity later on in a positive direction. So I had these big dreams of like adding value. So to go into the Marine Corps and have an experience where like I'm pretty much a sex toy for people.
Yeah, it's completely life shattering.
It's life shattering.
What you
expected it to be.
Yeah.
I thought my brains that got me with this ASVAB score and like this massive contract, like that I was getting ahead in life.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got offered the sun, moon, and stars because it was me and one other female in the country that scored the highest on the ASVAB. So this particular field of how we were getting attached to grunt units was the first females entering. So like I was a pioneer in something. But for me, I didn't realize that because growing up in school, everything was 50-50. It was boys and girls were mixed.
Mm-hmm.
So even though like I understood that like the Marine Corps was offering me everything, when they said that there was not females in that field, I didn't think about what it would be like because I just thought it would be me partnering with a guy in school that I would do a project with or anything else. I didn't think what it was going to be like and what it's like for men to be many of them in one woman. Like you can't do that to men and you can't do that to women. Like it's unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
So to go through that experience, you have to understand the Marine Corps, the whole system is built around like sexual assault. The men and women participate in this because the women to move up the ranks have had it done to themselves. And for them to move up the ranks, they partner with other men who are rapists and offer them those women. They're helping each other. That's why this culture exists. If the women had put a stop to it earlier and stood up for other women, this would have never happened with my experience going in there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was everybody participating in the leadership, and this was that culture. It was a culture shock because I was not anticipating to go through what I went through. And it was through those things that having to deal with childhood trauma, my mom losing custody for abuse to then going through another form of abuse, I was dealing with PTSD. Like I was having post-traumatic stress in severe amounts because life just was not what I expected it to be. Because I was like a straight A student and I thought that I would be somebody who was gonna, do things in life.
Yeah, and I remember when that night happened because it was right around the time you got back from all of this.
Yeah.
So you came back thinking that life was just gonna go back to normal, but here you are dealing with a condition based on those experiences, like and how it really messed you up.
Yeah.
And so, honestly, like I've seen it. I remember being in Miami. I had just graduated high school. You were back. We went to my aunt's and, all of a sudden in the middle of the night, you just started like flipping out.
Yeah, fighting.
It was like the weirdest thing. I was half asleep, but you were like fighting the air, and I was like kind of scared of you. I'm like, okay, well, do I sleep on the floor? Like, am I okay to go back to bed? Like, am I gonna get hurt? I'm gonna wake up with bruises, aren't I, Janelle?
Yeah.
So
I know you were. I remember you shook me, and you're like, "You're okay. You're okay. You're okay." I'm like, "No, I'm not." Yeah, I was like beating up the wall and everything.
It was fucking crazy. I've never witnessed anything like that. and like
That's
it was kind of awkward the next morning because I was like, I don't really know how to talk about it. And so I don't know if you remember, but it was sort of like, hey, you remember? Yeah, you remember that weird moment in the middle of the night, right? Yeah. Okay, cool. Like, I wanted to make sure you knew that.
I know, right?
And we would just let it go. Where, honestly, how do I feel now, knowing like this is something that you've struggled with, and like now understanding the timeline of it all? Is that maybe I should have sat down and said, hey, like, this is what happened last night. Did you have a bad dream? Like, what were you feeling? Like, that's not normal. That's the first time I've ever witnessed that. Have you gone through that before? Like, because if you have, maybe we need to talk to somebody. Like, so looking back on it, I think that's how my approach should have, been. But
well, I think for me though, like, all right, so when I was first having flashbacks, I didn't know I was having flashbacks. So I didn't know what was happening. So the thing was, when I was going through all these things, it was like I knew something was wrong. Like, I'm going back in time, and like the sexual assault, I'm reliving it, or me getting hit, I'm reliving it. So I'm reliving this stuff, and I'm like, yo, this stuff is my past. But whenever I felt a threat, so like a trigger, right? Like something would trigger me off. So like being at the house at night when I did the Spider Woman, it was because that girl was like threatening the well-being of my sister. Mm-hmm. So like me, that was like, oh, I'm going into action right away. And instead of de-escalating, I would escalate because I didn't know how to manage it.
Yeah.
So the difference from then until now would be the fact that now I've learned and I have tools to manage it. Mm-hmm. Where like before, it was like a wild horse in the wild trying to figure out life, but didn't really know.
But like, how did you actually recognize that you needed to get help?
So what happened was I had suicidal episodes. So I got to the point multiple times where like I overdosed on drugs, but like not by accident, like I did it on purpose. So like I had done that with like some like hardcore drugs, and it wasn't something where I was addicted, that I was just doing it on a regular basis. It was like I tried to just do it for that purpose because I wanted to tap out.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh yeah, I was like, if I get high and I get real high, my way out should be pretty good. And that didn't even happen. So I don't know. That was an effed up mistake. And then going through that experience was the first time I went to that place. And luckily my dad was there. So like he helped me get out of that and was like reassuring me that like he loves me and that life is meaningful and that he wants to see me succeed. And that was the first time. The second time was in 2012 because that whole time I was getting treated for bipolar disorder. Because after I was sexually assaulted in the Marine Corps, they diagnosed me with bipolar disorder. And at the time, they weren't diagnosing for PTSD. Like the Marine Corps psychologist person was like, it sounds like PTSD, but you're not a combat veteran. So I got diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And then I spent a couple of years on that, like on bipolar medicine, and it wasn't working. And I wasn't getting better. And I had another suicidal episode. And this is while I'm supposed to be on this medication that's making me feel better.
No, it's actually making things
worse. Exactly. And I'm not healing. And I'm like going through more and more frequent episodes of this. So finally I checked myself into a hospital. And then they're still treating me for this bipolar disorder. And then I'm like, yeah, I'm feeling better, but I'm not. And then I go to the VA and I'm like, something's wrong with me. Like I need help. And so the plan I'm on right now is not doing it. And luckily they listened. The psychiatrist listened. When I told her the experiences I'm having and my behaviors and like what I go through, that's when she was like, you have PTSD.
Yeah, I think the VA was extremely instrumental in recognizing this condition and getting you the help that you need.
Yeah, that's the right plan.
That's a lot of the reason why you're able to manage it the way that you are, whereas other people, maybe they would have already committed suicide by now.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So it's like, especially with your case being as, as
severe
as it is, So I think that getting that help, having that available resource at the VA
made the difference.
It made all the difference. And so, like, how would you answer to someone, like, with how that helped you to deal with your struggle today?
Well, yeah, the way I deal with my struggle is that I get help when I need it, when I hit a certain point. So when I'm at the level that I'm at the point that I want to give up and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. It's too much for me. And I'm like, all right, I just want to die. Like, God, you and I are having a conversation. It's time for me to tap out. This is way too much. I know this life is supposed to be great, but it really hurts. And this is too much for me. I know right then and there, my next thought could potentially be, I just want to die. Like, I want to die, but I want to hurt myself. So it's like, if you get to that point of wanting to hurt yourself or someone else, then you're at a level that you need to dial it back, and you have to get help at that point, because you're just going to start, once you start thinking that you want to hurt yourself or harm someone else, you're at the point of starting to plan it. So if you know that you want to die and this is too much and you're overwhelmed, you have to get help at that point, because you brought yourself too far down, or whatever the environment is, or whatever triggers you brought you to that point, and now it's time to get help at that point.
Yeah.
It's if you're feeling suicidal and you get to that point, you're already planning it. Like, you're already starting to plan it. So when you start having those thoughts, that's when you gotta call 911. Call 911. That's what you have to do. At that time, not a second later, not 3 days later, not 4 days later.
Not thinking that, okay, you know what, I got this shit handled, because little do you know how bad it actually is.
But your subtle conscious will start preparing you for that.
Yeah.
Like, you'll think, oh, like, I'll make it through this, and then, like, you'll make it through that, but those thoughts remain the same.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to have people intervene and know what's going on. So that's why I said, before you even get down that dark path and you're like quitting on life, you got to get help. So it's like, you got to go to 911. That's the best thing you could do for yourself and your loved ones.
Yeah.
Because it's not only about you. You have to remember it's about the relationships that you value, mm-hmm. and whatever you do value in life that you've been given. So I think that's, how that's what you need to do. But, like, how do you feel knowing that my PTSD is always going to be a part of our friendship?
I mean, well, after being friends for 15 years, it's sort of like, well, I'll never give up on this. No matter how crazy you are. Thank you for getting help. It makes it easier. That kind of thing. But it's definitely made me super aware of mental health conditions, like, for people that have gone through experiences that you have. Like, you've really opened my eyes to what is going on in certain parts of the world. How this was going into the military for you, and just understanding, that you could lean on us, like your friends, your family. You can reach out to the VA for help. Like,
but how do you feel having to be mindful and, like, of someone who has PTSD? And then, what advice do you give to others in terms of what it takes to be mindful?
You putting yourself second at times, knowing that, like, wow, like, regardless of what I'm going through, like, this is real. Like, this person, it's difficult for them to get through this, challenge right now in their life. I need to be there for them. And it's sort of just like being able to know what kind of love and support that it is that they're looking for, and be that for them, be there. don't hold them, don't hold anything against them, but hold them accountable. Like that's what, I would say you would have to be aware of as dealing with that as a loved one, like being patient, understanding it's a condition, they can't control, and just sort of trying to help them through that.
How do you hold me accountable and balance out avoiding holding it against me?
It's definitely hard. Just like just having that open line of communication, saying, "Hey, you hurt me," or like that wasn't okay. Like, okay, like there's obviously something you need to talk through, or there's something happening right now. You need to tell me a little bit about what that is.
So basically, the willingness to have open communication and having compassionate communication where you're empathizing.
Yeah, I'm not going to hold it against you, but
you're not angry about it.
Yeah. But if you keep getting like this and not let me in, then I can't help you. You have to be willing to let me in so I can help you.
Because then it's anger versus anger, and the defense mechanisms trigger for people with PTSD.
Exactly.
So it's like that you have to take the pathway that's a safe avenue. So it's having those conversations of like, hey, Janelle, like, that thing you did when you were Spider-Woman? Like, I wasn't really cool with that, when you were, like, up against the whole party. Like, that whole thing wasn't really cool.
Yeah.
I know you're trying to beat her up, but, like, could have you not let that go?
Yeah, because it's kind of scary. Like, I don't really know what to do in that situation.
Yeah, like, what happened? What's going on?
Yeah. So, yeah. Interesting. But Janelle, what advice would you give to someone with PTSD?
That when you get to the point of even before feeling suicidal, like you're giving up, where like you're on your last breath of oxygen, like if you're having conversations with God, like, God, why am I here? Like this hurts so bad. Like you're on that road, you're opening up that, like, well, the door is being open for you to take that.
Yeah.
So it's like, you gotta grab your lifeline because you're sinking to get the tools you need to get back up.
Yeah.
And it's like you have to do that. So you have to get help from professionals, like, and reaching out to your friends and family, but you have to depend your awareness level on who's toxic for you and who's healthy. Because you have to find safe places.
And understanding that if you reach out to a friend or a family member, they may not know how to deal with it. So in turn, that may be a trigger right there for you because you're like, okay, well, I reached out to someone I love and they were supposed to be able to help me through this, but maybe they just don't know how to. Like it's such uncharted territory for them that they're like, holy crap, I really don't know what to do. And maybe they may respond wrong, which won't help you in the long run.
Yeah.
So I really think that's why going to see a professional is extremely important. Because they're specifically trained on how to handle this. Yeah. They can see the signs. They're able to actually assess the severity and tell you, what you need to do going forward to prevent this from happening. And
I think, like whether it is support groups or whether it is people engaging, like part of it is for someone who has PTSD, you have to be willing to talk about it to the people around you. Because if there's one mistake that I've made, it's not talking about it and feeling alone. And then when trigger events do happen, you get upset at how people respond because they're not understanding what you're really dealing with. Because they may think it's one problem and you're like, no, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Like, that's not really the extent of what I'm really dealing with or the magnitude of it. So I think being able to open those lines of communication and being honest that, hey, I have PTSD. This is what I'm going through. This is what I have. And like holding yourself accountable to get the help you need, but as well as, opening conversations to what you experience. Like what we spoke about with me going, back and doing Spider Woman, that was because I was going through an episode. Like I was going through being in the military and having this female Marine grab me by the neck and like push me up against the wall. And then me hitting her, like me getting into a fight with her because she put her hands on me.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that was supposed to be someone who was my like leader. So that's not something you would expect from, like somebody you're looking up to and someone you're supposed to respect. So it's like, and that incident led to a series of other incidences for me. Mm-hmm. So I think, the fact that here I am in another situation feeling threatened by another female who's basically endangering the well-being of my sister, for me, it was just the trigger.
Yeah, and that's gonna trend,
Yeah.
That's gonna always be an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to really take a look at, well, why is this happening? What can I do to sort of not end up here?
Well, part of it is like strengthening your mind. Like I do brain activities every day. Mm-hmm. So like there's certain activities I do to strengthen my mind so I make sure I'm strong enough. So like I do in the morning like a gratitude prayer where like the first thing I do when my eyes open is I say thank you for something. Whether it's materialistic or something spiritual or something like deeper that it should be, whatever it is, I'm thankful for something. And every day it's different. Because sometimes, like, honestly, like, looking at, like, the purple in my room, I'm just like, I love looking at the purple in my room. Thank you for that. Like, if that's the only
thing.
But, but no matter what it is, just so, like, I find something to hold on to, and throughout the day, I'll think of other things, and it'll get deeper. But that's one way that I strengthen my brain. The other thing I do is, like, activities where I'll clean my house and I'll use my right hand because I'm left-handed. And I notice all my negative thoughts coming out, like left and right, really bad. But I'm conscious of it. I'm not having bad thoughts that I'm not aware of. I'm super aware of them when I use my weaker hands. And then I'm like, I change my thoughts. I'll switch whatever I'm doing to my left hand, and my thoughts will be positive. And then I'll go back to my right hand until my thoughts on both hands are strong and positive.
Yeah.
And when I feel that and I'm like, okay, now my thoughts are aligned with my left and my right and I don't feel weak anymore, then I'll move on to another task and I'll carry on, with something else. But that I notice helps me when I do get to those low points naturally.
Yeah.
To help bring myself back.
I think a lot of that came from, again, you reaching out, that cognitive behavioral therapy. Like, I think it did wonders for you. Like it helped put structure in your life and it allowed
gave you tools.
Yeah, it allowed you to just, utilize the resources available to you to help manage this along,
Yeah, and I think too, like it also helped me to be able to like learn to talk about my experiences so I can have deeper conversations with people around me to let them know what's really going on. Because it was too, like there was a lot of years I think too that like I never really talked about my military experience. Like I never really opened up about it for a lot of reasons. The show was traumatizing as fuck. It was so traumatic for me that I wanted to pretend like it never happened. I was trying to black it out of my life. But it's so severe that it's like, 10 years later, being where I am today, I could still have an episode and it still triggers.
Yeah.
So it's coming to terms that I'm going to, if I make the decision to live, I'm living with it forever. And if I'm living with it forever, I might as well have all the tools in my arsenal to be able to make it. So it's like, let me do everything I can to be the strongest person I can be to deal with a life battle that I'm going to have to deal with. Right? Like, if I'm going to be a warrior in the game and it's against myself, then I need all the tools I can to deal with myself.
Yeah, or you're not going to make it through.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And it's like I've already been at that point multiple times. So the way I feel about it is I've escaped that situation multiple times. I've made it out.
Because you have it within you. You have that ability.
Yes.
You have that strength. You have that understanding, and you're getting help.
Yes.
So because of that perfect combination, you know, you're still here doing what you got to do. And, you know, I think that has a lot to say about who you are, and like how this condition is obviously something real, and, you know, something that you can't neglect. You know, it's happening.
It's happening to a lot of people, because when you look at PTSD as a whole and you look at everybody in the world, right, the military personnel get it the most. And I truly believe that has to do with the poor leadership in the military, because a lot of the ideals are antiquated on versus like the corporate sector. Like the leadership in the corporate sector raises you to be a leader. Like if you're in a powerful organization, it raises you and develops you to be a leader and to believe in yourself and to believe in your team. When the military is very hyper masculine, to the point that it's like all about winning, and your leaders up. Like if you're not falling into line with what they want and you have a different opinion, you're a loser. They're a winner, and you're going to have a consequence. So it's almost like the mentality of the leadership there contributes to people going through the experiences they go through.
Oh, without a doubt.
And it's like, if you're in the military and you're dealing with everything you're dealing with, then it's like everybody should be able to have that degree of mental and emotional support along their way, because you're dealing with that, plus you're dealing with you know, going to war and combat and sexual assault. Like there's so many other variables aside from how your leadership addresses things that you're dealing with, that you have to understand. Of course, it's the highest rate of people with PTSD, because a lot of trauma happens in the way that organization functions.
Yeah, and that's something that needs to be brought to light.
But the problem that it's not brought to light is because you have to think of the military. We have the most well-funded military in U.S. dollars in the world. So if you really want to go against an organization to say, hey, you guys should fix yourselves, you're going against the most powerful organization in the universe. That's profound. So it's like they don't want to improve themselves. They want to just get you out, because the reality is you don't fit the mold of what it should be. But it's really people that are okay with abuse, like that are okay with it. So the reality is you can't expect all these people coming out to like, I gave my life for this country, but here I am getting abused by the management. Like, why am I doing this? I feel worthless. So of course people are going to go through that. And I think when they're dealing with the emotions of, you know, sacrificing so much to get so little in return, it gets to a point that you're like, this life is too hard. I don't want to do it. So you have to think there's a reason why military personnel have PTSD at the rate they do. But then when you think of problem number two is that anyone who has PTSD, it's the most likely that you're going to commit suicide. So when you think about the next two problems that happen from the PTSD is you get shootings, because you get people that want to harm others before they harm themselves. So you get mass shootings. And then the other side that you get to it is you get self-harm, where people commit suicide. But if you think about a lot of people who commit mass shootings, they also end up committing suicide because they're mad at the world. You harmed me. You put me in this situation. So it's like you find an immediate circle and you want to take all your anger out on all these around you because you're so scarred and hurt by the world. So it's like, you have to realize a lot of these political situations derive from severe mental illness. So it's like that's an issue that could be prevented. These are issues that could be taken care of. But it all comes down to people recognizing, hey, I have a problem. I need to get help. And that could be a success story instead of, you know, a suicide story. That's the reality of it. But people have to be willing to look at themselves and say, hey, you know what? Let me go get help. Let me get on the right track.
There's nothing wrong with admitting that this happened to me. There's nothing wrong with me saying, you know what? I can't get through this on my own. Like, you know, someone needs to help me help me process
Process
all of this. You know, so it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay. You know, there's actually a lot more people out there that are experiencing exactly what you are, that feel the same way. Like,
Yeah.
oh wow, like I'm alone in this. Like I can't believe I have to go through this. Like, what if I did tell people? Like, you know, how would that change the way that they look at me? You know, every person's gonna, you know, have a different outlook on that. Like, you know,
No, and I understand. Well, some people are not ready to get help or acknowledge that they even have a problem. And that's where others around them have to look at the signs. But some people are willing to be enablers of it and just be like, they're like that to the point of like, no, this is too far. You need to get help.
yeah.
So like, there's a point that like there's little signs and we overlook them sometimes. So it's like, it's being willing to acknowledge what's going on and how to navigate it and grow. But yeah, you know, it's like you have to be willing at least to get help, because if you're not and you're too far gone, you made a decision of the path you're on. You committed to it. So you're just going to play it out and it's going to happen. So it's like you really have to decide and make that decision within yourself that, all right, I have a mental illness, but I'm not going to torture everyone around me and I'm not going to harm everyone around me. I'm going to fight through it because I have that within me.
Yeah, I'm not going to let this dictate my life.
Exactly. Like, yeah, it hurts. It's hard. It's super hard to deal with. It breaks me down. But if I'm going to go out the door, I want to go out the door a success story that I made it through this struggle. And at some point, everybody dies. I understand that. But I want to be, when I go, I know that I did my best because I avoided that road so many times and that it was God that took my life, you know, versus me giving up. I made it to the end. So it's like, you know, I look at that and I'm like, that means I have so much more to live for. So much more of my story is going to be written. And I hold on to that, you know, hold on to that sense of purpose. Like there's more to this.
Yeah.
There's more to life. There's more to this. You know, there's more to love and purpose. And if I got to go through pain, it's going to be for some purpose. So there's purpose tied to this and I'm going to keep moving forward. And I hope that like people become understanding and more compassionate towards mental illness versus being like, you know, go into like an insane asylum or forget you or go into the criminal justice system because you're not going to amount to anything.
Yeah.
That people really just get to the point of we need to be empathetic and we like, let's work towards being more of a healing society versus people that just sit there and judge on Twitter.
Yeah, because how you're going to react to that, you know, is huge. You know?
Yeah, and I think that's what people, you know, if anyone takes away anything from, you know, us starting a conversation, I would hope that it would be that there's a way out and there's a positive road that you can take. Like you're going to deal with the struggle, but if you're committed to it and you know what you're dealing with, your team will be strong enough to make it through. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from this conversation.
I agree 100%.